Hello, world, and welcome to the For Your Best Self podcast. It's cosmetic dermatologist Dr. Sluja, and today I'm proud and pleased to host Dr. Deely, a gifted physician, life coach, author, mother, and wife. Dr. Deely is an oncologist who became a cancer patient and realized life is too short. And instead of making a living fighting death, she now makes a living celebrating life. Oftentimes, our aesthetic patients come to us when a major life event is coming up or has happened. One of the most common life events is a relationship change, divorce, or dating. Our patients want to look refreshed and have a fresh start, Botox, fillers, plastic surgery, etc. Our plastic surgeons and I work on beautifying the face, body, skin. And I think loving yourself and feeling fulfilled and loved in your relationships go hand in hand with aesthetics and with being your best self. And so I'm excited to learn more about Dr. Deely's perspective on beautifying the interior of us and our relationships. And I hope you are too. Welcome, Dr. Deely.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Dr. Deely, you mentioned, I'm going to get right into it. We get to know you soon. You mentioned you had fillers around the time of your divorce.
Oh, yes.
Tell us a little bit about why.
Well, first,
story.
I'm a Latin girl. So you grow up knowing that when you feel beautiful, you change. You don't get beautiful to impress people around you. You get beautiful because when you like what you see in the mirror, you irradiate a beauty and brainwash other people to believe your beauty. So yes, around the time of my divorce, lifting my self-esteem was the first time that I went ahead and had, not the last time, that I went ahead and had some fillers doing. Yes, my friend who did it that time warned me, this can become addictive. And yes, and I that's why I tell my friends who are in dermatology and plastic surgery, many of your clients need me. Because this is a moment of transition when you're trying to find yourself and like yourself again.
Yeah, we're helping with the exterior, but not necessarily some of those life transitions that you can then help with. So I understand from you that you did recover from that divorce. Tell us how. Give us some hope. Share.
Absolutely. This story, I'll try to be brief because I love to tell it. But I was a divorced 38-year-old woman who had never dated in her life. I had married the first guy I ever first kissed at age 19. So I had zero experience in the world of dating. And I was living in a town where everybody was 65 and older. And I was a mother of 4 children, including kids with special needs. So everybody said, you are not going to find a husband here. But I had that longing. I knew I had never been really in love, and I wanted to fall in love. So I've been a student of personal development all my life, and I started educating myself about the applications of law of attraction into finding love, starting with working in my inner love. Mm-hmm. And like magic, I found this wonderful husband. That's a long story, how that went, but he was an eternal bachelor who had never been married and who everybody said he's going to run away the second he sees these 4 children. It's never going to work. Very different from me. You see me, I'm a Latin girl. He's a very, very white American Buddhist. And it was love, tremendous love very early on. And I took the step of saying, he's going to break my heart. I know it, but it doesn't have to make sense. This just feels right. And we have been together now for 10 years, married for almost 8. He has become the most wonderful step-parent my children could have ever dreamed of. It's been above and beyond any dreams and expectations.
That's amazing. So that is hopeful. How did you recover from your heartbreak, or how does one recover from heartbreak so they can find the next?
I think the most important part of recovering is giving yourself permission to grieve and to feel. If we numb ourselves and we try to be too brave or bounce back too quickly, we don't learn the lesson. And like one of my favorite sayings is by Viktor Frankl, suffering stops being suffering when it finds its meaning.
Right.
So any heartbreak you went through, any disappointment, if you take the time to grieve it, to feel the feelings, and also learn about yourself. Why did I end up with this person? What could I have done differently? So this relationship would have been in better power balance, for example, or more loving. Oops, I'm hearing a noise.
Mm-hmm.
When you take the moment to learn what that person came to teach you, that's the beginning of true recovery.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So you're recovering and you're saying you found love. Where does self-love fit in this? Where did your self-love, where does self-love fit in this?
Oh, it's everything. Nobody can fall in love with you for real until you fall in love with yourself. So the number one relationship you have to work on is that one.
How?
How do we work on it?
Self-love, right.
You start by getting
First
to
steps.
know yourself. You start by dating yourself. And one nice way of learning to know yourself is seeing your past, seeing what has been the pattern with your previous relationships. What are the traits that you have felt attracted to in the past, in men, in exes, in friends, and understanding your lost self. Why am I attracted to people who treat me this way? And you start learning about parts of you that you lost in the process of growing up. And you start becoming that. And you start giving yourself what you wish other people would be giving you. From flowers to nice dinners to time and listening to yourself.
Interesting. So you give yourself the things you want.
Yes.
That makes sense. Okay, so as we're working on self-love, how do we start to attract love from outside of ourselves? Because we like connection, right? Mm-hmm. We're human beings. We want connection. So there's still that longing.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether divorced or single or starting out.
That is almost unavoidable. One of my favorite parts of the Course in Miracles says, love is everything, is everywhere. If you don't have it, it's not because it's not right there, it's because you have barriers that are not preventing it to come into your life. So as you work in your self-love and you release those barriers, love is almost unavoidable. Starting with, yes, you have to take action, but most of the time when we don't take action, when we hide in our house in our pajamas behind Facebook instead of going in public, for example, when we refuse to join online dating, all those are different manifestations of your inner barriers. And when you change your inner dialogue, it's mind-blowing how you change your nonverbal communication and what you present to the world. And I have stories to tell you about that. About when you do that inner work, you realize you didn't even know it, you were blocking people to come from you with your lack of eye contact, with your body posture, with very tiny nonverbal communication and almost telepathy that was sending the message, stay away from me. And that goes away when you start liking yourself so much. Other people around you say, what? She's having a lot of fun in that head. I want a little bit of that.
Interesting. So barriers, you're talking about barriers, pajamas, Facebook, not going out. What were barriers you had, or what are other barriers?
Oh, my biggest barrier at the time was my identity. I could protest about it, but I was very stuck to the pride of saying, I am the girl who never dated or kissed any guy before. Mm-hmm. I was this good lady. I'm too good to flirt, mm-hmm. and I am too ladylike to go out in the world. And I had to let go of that identity and really speaking the truth to myself. What do I want? I want company. I want socialization. I want love.
What about work? You're a doctor. What happens when work gets in the way?
The thing is that love enhances your life at so many levels that the best gift you can give to your patients, to your children, to your loved ones is tending to that, because then your tank is full and you're able to give more. So it may look like you're taking away time from your obligations to devote to this, but it's an investment that comes back multiplied for them.
Okay.
They get back a lot more than what you withdrew at the beginning.
Okay, so phases. So you have this grieving phase, then self-love, finding your self phase, and then reducing barriers and being out there phase. So how do you then? So let's say someone says, "I want to join in on that fun." What are the stages of love? Like, doesn't it seem like that seems more like romance or passion and fun? Is that romance and fun love? Or what? How do you take it from those evenings out to more?
Well, that's one of my favorite topics because I'm an incurable romantic, even write romance stories.
Oh, we'll get to that.
People sometimes tries to dismiss this, saying, "Oh no, romantic love is just a phase, and it only lasts a little while, and it goes away, and it's just for." But actually, first of all, romantic love is one of the most healing things you'll ever have. And yes, there are clashes, but those clashes are designed to make you grow, to get you out of your comfort zone. And the diagram of romance is the first couple of years in the relationship are fueled by endorphins, by oxytocin, by all those feel-good hormones that make it easy to be elated and walking in clouds. And if you don't do anything, that will go away in a couple of years, average.
Mm-hmm.
Then the struggle phase comes when we start noticing how different we are and the different traditions in the family. And we start, conflict for power begins.
Mm-hmm.
But if you did your job right, those first 2 years, you accumulated enough good memories and wonderful times that they keep you going through that struggle phase. And if what brought you together is real values and not only attraction, and you have grown together, then that struggle phase is a gateway for a more steady form of love. When you grow, you get to know each other, you're comfortable with each other. And my favorite part doesn't mean that the romance is gone forever. Like seasons, like spring comes back, it blossoms again. And you go through phases. I say that when you're exhausted, lying in bed, the children have run you flat, and you can barely hold hands. But then you go again through the phases when you are loving and enthusiastic, and you want to take trips together, and you can't wait to make love, and you're really back to the romantic phase.
So I think many of us or people are scared, right? Scared of love or change or this progression. You talk about tools. Tell us about a tool or a first step. You talk about truth. How do we use that for steps for finding love or not, or being less scared or fearful?
Well, if you can do only one thing today, start by making a commitment to speak to yourself with only the truth. And I offer my clients an exercise that they're free to do in any time. When you imagine that you drank a magic potion, a truth serum, or they injected you with a truth serum, and you write on top of the page of a journal, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And you start putting out there, you're never going to show that to anybody. So no filters, no political correctness. How do I feel? Am I sad? Am I angry? Am I scared? Do I regret something? What is working and not working in my life? Because we lie to ourselves all the time. I used to do it all the time, especially lies of omission, when we refuse to admit that something isn't working.
Give an example.
For example, I spent 15 years of my life being an oncologist, a career that I took because my mother had died of cancer and I needed to grieve her. I never had a chance, so I fell in love with the cancer patients that made me cry. They were allowing me to get out that sadness I never expressed. But after that phase goes away, it was killing me. It was killing me because I loved them. I wanted to hug them. And what the culture of oncology is, that's not an advantage. That's a disadvantage. You want strong boundaries. You don't want them to influence
That's
you.
not your role.
You have to stay behind a wall so they don't affect you. And I couldn't.
So you can make the right decisions.
Yes.
Helpful decisions.
So for over a decade of my life, I was miserable in a career that the cases were heartbreaking, and I refused to admit it. I kept saying, I'm lucky to have this job.
Right.
I have a multi-six-figure salary, and my patients love me, and I am lucky to do this.
You're good at it, right?
And it took me becoming a cancer patient and removing the last of that wall and realizing, oh gosh, going through cancer treatment sucks. These poor patients, I'm giving them the chemo I hated so much. Oh my God. For me to realize this is not going to work.
Interesting. And then what did you do?
Well, first I said, I'm going to give it one last try. Now that I know what cancer treatment feels, this is my chance to be there for my patients for real. And then they say that my mother used to say, when God taps you on the shoulder and you don't listen, then with his right hand, he taps you in the shoulder with his right hand and you don't listen, then he smacks you with his left hand. Everything started going wrong in my workplace. The most heartbreaking young cases in the world were showing at my door, begging me, please cure me. And I knew they were incurable. The signs were there. And I take a lot of work, a lot of listening to my real voices inside, a lot of exercises until I could reconcile all the conflicting voices. That's how I ended up making the decision to leave.
Interesting. Yeah, that's brave. I want to go back to the relationships part. What if somebody listening is not having a lot of romance in their relationship, but not ready to explore divorce, still feels like there's a chance? How do you figure out if there's a chance?
Well, I always tell people, my clients, because life coaches are a little different than therapists. By the way, relationship therapies are wonderful, and there's one I visited once when I was trying to save my first marriage, that he thinks it was a failure because the marriage broke. I think it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I learned a lot.
Okay. That
has helped me in my current marriage. But the marriage therapist is obligated to save the marriage. They have that agenda, while the coach is there to help you figure out what you want. And sometimes the happy ending of the story is when you take the decision to leave. I've been in both sides. I've been in the side of having to leave a painful marriage, and then it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I've been in the side of having a serious conflict with my husband and working on figuring it out and being glad I did, because then I stayed in a wonderful marriage. So if you ask me how to start, I would say that the first thing is that you give yourself permission to speak yourself the truth. And the question I ask first is, were you ever crazy about each other? If you got married because all the wrong reasons, like the biological clock is ticking, he has the right amount of money in his bank account, or the right education, or the right ethnic background, he is the right person my parents approve. If that was what got you together and you were never crazy about each other, it's harder. I'm not saying it's impossible, but at least speak the truth to yourself. When clients come and say, no, I was head over heels in love with him, I say it's solvable. If you can remember a time when you were wholeheartedly, passionately in love with each other, then there's hope. There's a lot more hope.
Do both sides have to be passionately in love?
Remember that the way men and women express love is different. So you may, their reasons to say this is the right relationship may look a little different. They may be more hesitant to express that type of puppy love. But if the feelings were there of this is someone I admire, I've experienced awe in presence of this person. That is their version of I'm head over heels in love.
Yes, interesting. You were talking about when you're asking yourself truth, right? Or trying to learn about your truth, that you write on a piece of paper. What is there a role for journaling, or how is this journaling?
Oh, absolutely. Journaling is as important as brushing your teeth. And there's so many different ways you can approach it. You can journal about these exercises, journal about speaking the truth to yourself. You can have a gratitude journal, which is one of the most amazing ways to turn around your life and your marriage. And recently, during a class I'm taking online from the University of California at Berkeley, I learned the good news that you don't have to do it every day, that once a week for 15 minutes, listing 5 things you're grateful for and savoring them, going in detail, not general. Oh, I'm grateful for the ice cream cone I had yesterday because it was delicious and it had these nuts and it has these layers of flavors in it. When you dwell into it, 5 things once a week is enough to statistically significant improve happiness. So yeah, there's hundreds of different things you can do with a journal, and you should have one. I'm carrying one in my purse right now. I've never
oh,
too far away
really?
from
So
one.
you're practicing what you preach.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's the best way. I find that I will journal for certain periods and then fall off, for gratitude and then fall off. What do you do to get back on when you fall off?
Well, first you exercise self-compassion. You cut yourself some slack and don't waste any mental energy in self-flagellation. And then you pick it up again and again and again. It's just like when we know that if we are on a diet and we sleep, the easy way is, well, it didn't work now, I'm going to binge eating. No, you just start fresh the next day again.
Start over, right. Along with journaling gratitude, I met you through a hypnotist, Lori Burke, who is wonderful as well. What is the role of meditation, hypnosis, those kinds of things in a relationship or in finding love? Oh,
there's any personal development, self-growth that you can do is crucial and vital for a relationship. Meditation, mindfulness is crucial too, because 90%, 95% of the time, we are operating an automatic pilot through old patterns. And what mindfulness, meditation does is it trains you to be in the present moment. Most of our arguments are when we are getting out of the present moment and thinking about the 50 times I told you this already and you still don't learn. If we are able to stay in the present and in our conscious brain instead of our unconscious patterns, that already is a dramatic improvement in the relationship. And the more aware we are, the more we learn about our past through personal therapy, through hypnotherapy, and we understand ourselves, the more we can remain conscious. And, I'm doing that again. I am slipping back to my childhood when I felt invisible, and now I'm getting out of the present moment.
Right. You were just talking about a fight where you're going back and saying I've told you this 50 times, or you were talking about how you had a conflict in your marriage that you were able to resolve. Any advice for fights?
Well, the first thing is the 2 best pieces of advice I heard in my life for relationships, which came from that couples therapist I saw so many years ago, where the first one is you want to cut the nip it on the bud. When something bothers you, you say it. You don't wait forever. It's like getting the trash out regularly. Because sometimes what happens is that these things accumulate and then we burst out altogether. But if you have the pattern that one of the coaching tools is an executive meeting a week, when the couples have a time when they're going to have 1 hour to complain, and the rest of the week, no, if you have a complaint, you write it down and you come back later. We have an appointment at this time for the complaints.
Oh, that's nice.
So you keep a clean slate constantly. And then the second part is anything that happened more than 2 weeks ago is ancient history and never to be mentioned again. If you're doing that work of constantly acknowledging the issues, then you don't have to.
You don't have to worry about the 2 weeks ago. Because
Anything-
you already addressed it.
Yes.
Yes.
And that means that you don't waste so much time and energy on resentment. And what I always call the assertiveness sandwich, when you have to learn how to talk. When you have complaints, you learn how to express them in an elevated way using iMessages and starting with gratitude and in a way that's sincere. So you are not turning every conversation into a fight, but that being assertive, saying what you want, is the best gift you can give your partner, because you're saving them from
trying to figure it out.
And
get in your mind.
And saving them from accumulated resentments in the future. So if you ever said, "Oh, I don't want to say this to keep the peace," you are making a bad investment. You may be keeping the peace right now, but the long-term peace is going to be affected. So you wait for the right moment, ideally an executive meeting, and you do it in a compassionate and kind way, but you say what's bothering you.
That's good advice. That's very good advice. So let's say you said what's bothering you, or you're in between relationships and you're feeling lonely, or you're in a relationship feeling lonely. What are your thoughts on loneliness?
I always say that if you are feeling lonely, that means you have some work to do in your relationship with yourself, because it's easier for introverts like me, of course. There's people who need more of company. But when you are having fun with yourself, when you like yourself, you would never feel lonely.
That's wise. So let's say we're going to work on our relationship with ourselves, because that seems like the most important thing to do, right? To start with ourselves. I know I am just signed up with life coaching with you to work on the relationship with myself. I think for me, at least, I get lost in my work and my work becomes me, and I'm trying to kind of learn about me outside of my job or my role in the workplace. So I'm getting a life coach to work on that self-love, and I know we've talked about that. What are reasons people get a life coach? What does that look like?
Most people who come to me, the first reason is relationship changes. People who either are going through a breakup, a divorce, or want love, and sometimes they don't tell me there's another reason, but that reason resurfaces. The second one is life transitions, like career changes, becoming an empty nester. And the other one is just calendar. I'm turning 40, or I'm turning 50, and I'm approaching the day of my retirement. Those things that you know ahead of time are going to bring questions.
Yeah, it's interesting how much the calendar brings worry or thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. So how is a life coach like a fitness coach, or what is that? As impatient as a lot of us are, including myself, do I just talk to you and then what?
Well, the life coach wears several different hats. Sometimes they are a listener friend, almost like a therapist. Officially, legally, we're not therapists. But sometimes we are kind of therapists, like a girlfriend would be. Sometimes we are teachers and we teach you tools and strategies. Sometimes we're just listeners and we direct you and tweak with questions so you arrive at your own conclusions.
Right.
And most people don't need that long. I have a handful of clients who decided that I am like their fitness coach, and they still meet with me every other week or once a month for over a year. But most people in 3 months are already pretty tune up. I usually recommend 12 to 18 sessions, because that's 3 to 6 months. And I have a package with 6 that I'm discouraging now, because after 6 sessions, most people feel so much better. There's a risk of saying, okay, I don't need the coaching anymore,
Right.
but it's hard to sustain the change.
Right.
So I discourage people to take only the 6 sessions, but people start feeling better right away. And I'm surprised of how quickly people are.
That's amazing. That's an amazing thing about
And
humans.
It's beautiful because I think by the time someone makes the decision to call a life coach, the work is 80% done. They already have decided they want to change. And that's the hardest part, making the decision to have a change of life.
That's true. Okay, you were an oncologist, so you're a life coach now. What is your background, or what's your training, or why are you a good life coach?
Well, first, I have been a passion of personal development all my life. I went through my first seminar at age 17, and all through my life, I have always been a student of this. My biggest graduation was the time after my divorce, when I became a student of law of attraction and personal development, and the way your thoughts affect your reality. And after that, after a medical school, I went to Wayne State University for internal medicine, Northwestern University for hematology oncology, and then practiced oncology for 15 years, which was a lot of me being a therapist for my patients. And a lot of my hematology patients without cancer, yes, also I ended up being kind of more their life coach than their doctor. Then after I left oncology, then I trained at the Robbins Madanas life coach training program, and that's where I have my official degree comes from there. But actually the journey and the studying has been forever. Not to mention my parents I grew up in that culture. My parents counseled couples
interesting.
in a church program called Marriage Encounters, where they taught couples communication skills and tried to help them save their marriages, which was interesting. That was what I had to overcome to get my own divorce later on.
Yeah.
But the culture of teaching people communication and helping them improve their relationships, I grew up with that since the crib.
Very interesting. So life coach, yes, but before we wrap up, I wanted to know a little bit about your fiction, because you're also a romance novel author.
Oh, yes.
What is that about?
I have published 10 novels in addition to my self-help book, Bouncing Back, a how-to manual for joy with minimal energy exertion. And that started I have always been a writer between journals and writing stories when I was little, fiction, fantasy, things like that, fan fiction. But around the time of my divorce, a character jumped in my mind. And two characters, a couple, they would not leave me alone. I was in the middle of the store, and it was stronger than me. I had to start writing the story. And later on, it became clear my unconscious was trying to tell me something. And those things I wasn't telling the truth to myself about in my journal started to resurface in that story. That helped me put many of my fears in order, because I had permission to say whatever. These were fictional characters.
Right.
And then it became addictive. After that story came another one and another one. And I started publishing them in 2017. And each one of them has been an exhilaration and joy that I said the biggest lesson I learned from that is things don't have to make sense. What still makes me the happiest in the world didn't make any sense. What's an oncologist doing, writing romance and mystery and suspense and fiction? What?
Right.
But it made me so happy. It transformed my life.
Yeah, it's a true art form. I got your first novel on Amazon.
Oh, good.
So I'm excited. It's for spring break. Is fiction healing in some way for others to even read, not just write?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, the very first fiction you can track down, Greek tragedy, archetypal ancient stories, were all about catharsis. When you abandon your ego temporarily and you write the persona of these characters, you're able to process feelings that you didn't process before. And I make sure that every character I write is a positive value, represents a healthy love. That is my kind of my brand, healthy love that is not about codependency, and that is about moral, at the end, about that love that is in congruence with your moral character, with your spiritual growth.
How can our audience find out more about what you write and coach about? And how do people contact you for more information? Because you opened a can of worms.
Well, my life coach website is joyfullysuccessful.com. And then my general website, where you have a port to go to my life coach site and also my author site, is pichardojohanssonmd.com. And I think it's pichardo-johansson-md but if you Google my name, you will find it. Dieli Pichardo Johansson with 2 S's.
You mentioned you were Latin. From what?
I'm originally from the Dominican Republic.
Mm-hmm. Before we go, does culture play a role, do you think, in this self-love and love and relationships?
Yes and no. I mean, we have universal needs. Everybody from every culture wants the same things. And what culture brings to the table is more of a flavor of what is okay and not okay to want. And I'm in this course I'm studying about happiness. Has been interesting how many of the big discoveries they have done about happiness are things that Latin culture has been doing forever, like taking care of your elders and loving acts of loving kindness, having gratitude, but that the culture here has made us forget about. So I think that would be the main difference, is what you consider is your duty versus what you consider you deserve and you're entitled to. That may be the main difference.
Well, Deely, that was outstanding, and it was a pleasure to learn from you on beautifying our relationships and on love. And any parting thoughts you want to share?
I guess the biggest message I am here to tell people is life is too short to live without passion. Don't wait until you discover that, like it happened to me when I thought I had metastatic cancer for 3 days, and I thought I was dying and my life was coming to an end, and I had to look back at my life and say, thank God I did leave that husband, the first husband. Thank God I gave a chance to the one who didn't make any sense. Thank God I started publishing these books that didn't make any sense. Because life is short and it's only worth living with passion.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Deely. It was a joy to be with you today. And thank you, audience, for listening. Until next time.